Hey guys, Josh here, Creator Bard, once again with a new video on one of the 7 basic plots from this book by Christopher Booker. Today we'll be focusing on probably one of the most well-known plots in literature, at least for like American and European audiences. That is the rags to riches plot. Now, for those of you who may not know what the rags to riches plot is, or are just a little confused on how it works, the most basic way that you can break it down is effectively the main character, the protagonist, starts in a low or disadvantaged state and then rises to a position of prominence, success, wealth, power, what have you, and thereby is fulfilled. And just like last video about the Overcoming the Monster plot, this is going to happen in a series of phases or plot points. If you haven't watched the Overcoming the Monster video, go back and watch that right now. I should have it linked somewhere up here. That's going to give you basically like the rundown of what I'm doing with this series, as well as the beginnings there with that first plot structure. So again, this is going to happen in a series of phases. Those phases are as follows: the initial wretchedness at home and the call, the out in the world initial success, followed by a central crisis, independence and final ordeal, and finally the final union, completion, and fulfillment. And we will talk a little bit more about all of those, but that's the general rundown of the rags to riches plot. So to kind of discuss the plot points in a little more depth, I'm actually going to use a couple examples. And for us kind of hardcore TTRPG fans, we've got Vexalia from Critical Role Campaign 1. Say what you want about Critical Role. I think they're fantastic, and I love watching them play. And for maybe us who are less hardcore D&D fans, but still enjoy fantasy and are plugged into a lot of the same fandoms, I'll use Harry Potter, a relatively well-known rags to riches story. In order to get a rags to riches story off the ground, in order to really get it moving, we have to start somewhere, right? And that has to be rags. It has to be what Christopher Booker calls the initial wretchedness at home and the call. So with Harry Potter, obviously we know the story. We've seen the little room under the stairs that he gets. We've seen the way that the Dursleys, I don't know, his aunt, uncle, and cousin treat him. And we all understand that that's a horrible existence. That they treated him poorly. It definitely crosses that line into abuse and neglect. And then he gets this call, right? And at first it's avoided. His uncle's like, we're not doing that. We don't want any part in that. Until finally they try and leave, and they get to the place where it all goes down. Hagrid kicks in the door, and there's the "You're a wizard, Harry" scene, and we all love it because that is the moment. That's the call when Harry is called out of the initial wretchedness at home and into a place where he can begin to allow the abilities that he has to blossom, and he can learn how to harness them, to hone them, and he realizes that he kind of has a place. Right? With Vexalia, unfortunately, all of her stuff happened before the campaign really got on air. So, what we know from Kith and Kin, we know from Vox Machina Origins, and then just general fandom stuff on, wiki fandom. She and her brother, Vax'ildan, had a miserable existence. Sildor, their father, basically wanted nothing to do with them. He gave them what passed for like an elven education, and then he thought they were failures. And again, that upbringing crossed that line into neglect and abuse. And Vexalia's call basically was her taking her brother Vax'ildan and running away. And they had enough. They couldn't deal with that anymore. And she specifically she needed to be out in order to pursue her own fulfillment. After the hero accepts the call, we've got to keep things moving. So they go out into the world and see some initial success. With Harry, obviously he goes into the wizarding world, he finds his people, and he generally has some very good success there with like the first movie, getting things moving in the school, making friends, making a couple rivals, and then completing what kind of the arc of the first movie being that first mission and the Sorcerer's Stone, all those things. He really got off to a good start. Then Vex'ahlia, once she was removed from Singorn and Sildor, her father, she then found Vox Machina. Her and Vax kind of had found their own people, right? They found their people, and they had some initial success in the Vox Machina Origins first volume. We see them defeating Amarylith and all that sort of thing. They got off to some really good starts, but they can't keep on that success for all that long. Then comes the central crisis. This is kind of that pivotal moment where something has to be confronted. They had the shadow figure, which was a concept that I didn't talk about earlier, and I will talk about it now. The shadow figure is effectively the overbearing figure that casts shadow and darkness over the protagonist. For Harry, I think it is the Dursleys. For Harry, it was the Dursleys. For Vex'ahlia, it was her father. In kind of the Goblet of Fire, after Harry has made his way through Quidditch tournaments and he's renowned as the chosen one, etc. The shadow figure makes itself present, makes itself known again, and it kind of becomes this overbearing presence on Harry's life. He's no longer the chosen one. He's like we get a little bit of this overcoming the monster, where it's the odds are stacked against him. There's the shadow, the darkness being cast over him. For Vex'ahlia, this was when she and Vox Machina realized they needed to go to Singorn. That means dealing with Sildor, their father. And there was a large portion of dread, right, leading up to all of that going down. In addition to the return of the shadow figure, we also see, typically in this phase of the story, the protagonist is separated from what they love most, because this overwhelming figure kind of pushes in on them, and then they're separated, they're isolated, and they have to confront this thing alone. So for Vex'ahlia, this was her brother, Vax'ildan. Through the entire story, he is what she cared about most, and the events leading up to this confrontation in Singorn basically left her in a lot of ways separated, emotionally, symbolically, from Vax'ildan. He was in the process of making his own path. Harry basically finds himself kind of isolated in amidst kind of others not believing in him, the death of Sirius Black, looming threat of losing those he cares about, etc., etc., etc. So there is this great despair and isolation as the shadow is cast back over them. And as the hero or heroine kind of comes into their own through this central crisis, we begin to gradually see them in a new light. We begin to see them growing into the thing that they need to be for the story to happen. This is called the Independence and Final Ordeal. For Harry, this was when effectively Dumbledore passed, and we see Harry needing to kind of stand on his own 2 feet. He makes it his mission to destroy the Horcruxes, and we gradually see him becoming the chosen one. For Vex'ahlia, this was the pivotal moment, was when Percy awarded her the title Baroness of the Third House of Whitestone and Grand Mistress of the Grey Hunt. This kind of allowed her father to see her as someone worthy of a title. But she, in herself, still had doubts. This was a title that she felt she didn't deserve. And so we gradually kind of see her dealing with these doubts, dealing with these fears, and becoming what she needs to be in order to fulfill the arc, they both gradually begin to step out on their own 2 feet and prepare themselves for the final union, completion, and fulfillment. The final union, completion, and fulfillment is the name Christopher Booker gives to the final phase of the Rags to Riches story. And basically, this is where, from the wretchedness through the call, central crisis, and independence, the character has prepared themselves to be something. And this is the step where they finally take that, right? Whether it's a noble title, a position in the company, a sum of wealth, whatever it is, the character is fulfilled through stepping into this role. In Harry Potter, it was when he survived the final fight with Voldemort. He defeats Voldemort and then survives. He comes out alive on the other side, and he steps into that role that he has earned as hero, as the chosen one, as the boy who lived. He even gets to become Auror, which was something that he desired through the story. And he finally gets that cathartic sense of having done something and fulfillment as he steps into the role as hero. For Vex'ahlia, this wasn't until after she claimed the magic bow. She earned her place in her own mind as Baroness of the Third House of Whitestone and Grand Mistress of the Grey Hunt. Up until this point, it had really been something where she'd wrestled with, well, I didn't even deserve the title. He gave it to me out of pity. But now I've come into a place where I believe that I've earned this right. And she steps with grace into that title and takes it with all of its responsibility and is fulfilled through her journey by this end. So at this moment, I would actually like to just take a second to say, if you enjoy this video, or if you enjoy my content on the regular, if you just think I'm a swell guy, please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. That's going to really help out my channel. It's going to help out this video. It's going to let me know what you guys want to keep seeing so I can keep continuing to make content like this. And it's going to help me stay plugged in with you guys. That's all. I'll quit talking. Let's get back to the content. If you're here for TTRPGs and you're kind of done with the literature talk, then let's just branch into how does this apply to D&D or other TTRPGs that we play. How do I make a compelling and meaningful Rags to Riches story in a tabletop game? As a GM, if your story hinges on a Rags to Riches plot, if that's the story that you want to tell, then make sure that you set up a place in the beginning of the story where the party understands they're in squalor. Maybe that means that you have to say, if you have the noble background, you're a noble that's been kicked out of their place or that's been cut off or whatever. If you have this background, whatever. You limit the amount of gold that they get. You limit some type of starting equipment, what have you. Set up a position where they are in a wretched state. Maybe their employer is underpaying them grossly. Maybe there is some demonic or devilish entity that is oppressing them. Maybe there's a corporation, a government, a whatever that is holding them down. This introduces the shadow figure as well. As you do that, you're then going to give them a call. This is just an adventure hook. We all know adventure hooks. So just give them some adventure hook that allows them to realize, okay, we are stepping out from the wretchedness. We are stepping out from the abuse. We are stepping out from the neglect, and we're moving into something better. As a player, this can basically just all happen in your backstory. Explain why your home life or your upbringing or your workplace, your status, whatever it was wretched. And give that shadow figure, because that's going to give your GM an awesome amount of room to play and to really engage your backstory meaningfully. And then give a call. Why did you start adventuring? What caused your character to leave the wretchedness where they were at and pursue something better? From there, most of the weight is going to be put on the GM for this one. Because you've got to, whether it's for your campaign or for a particular player, you've got to give them some initial success. Show them that they're going places. In most games like D&D or Pathfinder that are kind of character advancement based, this is going to happen naturally as they gain renown, as they complete the challenges and make people go, ooh, ah, wow. All this stuff's going to kind of fall into place. But make sure that if your player is trying to tell a rags to riches story, you're working with them. Say, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's rearrange this so that happens. And players, talk to your GM. Make sure that they know what story you want to tell, and figure out how you can work these little successes into your own stories so that you are building toward the central crisis. Again, most of this is going to flow pretty naturally. Whether it is a party story or an individual character story, there's going to come a point where it just kind of feels natural to insert that shadow character again. The corrupt politician, the abusive boss, the devilish entity that has held you guys under for years, or whatever that shadow figure is. There's going to come a point where it's like, ooh, now I need to do this. And make sure that when it comes back in, you're simultaneously separating the characters from what they love most. An individual character, if you want to bring in the shadow figure again, give the GM something that you love, and make sure that you give license to your GM to separate you from that for a time when this shadow figure comes back to cast its darkness over you. Then the independence and final ordeal. Basically, GMs, this is your point to kind of hand it over to the characters and let them take some of that initiative, take the reins of the story, and basically step out on their own 2 feet. Now, you have to create a space in which they can do that. You have to give them the motivation to do that. Mostly, that's probably going to occur from you putting that shadow figure in and isolating them from the thing they love. They want to get back to the thing they love, and they want to get out from under that shadow. Then players, if you are playing a rags to riches arc for your particular character, make sure that you, at this point, once that shadow figure comes and once you are isolated from the thing that you love, make sure that you take the reins of the narrative. Make sure that you do exactly that you're preparing for what you need to be. That obviously, naturally, and logically leads to the final union, completion, and fulfillment. Basically, this is where you, as the GM, if this is your story, you give the party what they've been desiring this whole time, whether it be wealth, power, position, etc., etc., etc. You allow that to come to fruition and communicate with your players to see what exactly it is that they would like to see in that completion. The completion is obviously they get this thing, but then individually try and make it meaningful for each individual player. You as a player character, talk to your GM. If you want to be the Auror, if you want to be the noble, if you want to have a position in the government, a company, etc., 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 if you want wealth, tell that to your GM at the beginning. Allow that to play out, and then help them engineer circumstances where this can come to fruition and your character can see a meaningful end. And there you have the rags to riches storyline and plot talked out, and its implications for tabletop role-playing games. I hope this was helpful, guys. If it was, again, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. That really does help me out as a creator. Next time, we will be discussing the quest, which to a lot of you probably seems like, duh, we know quests, but I'm going to be just giving some techniques and some formulas that will help you fully understand it and bring it about in a deep and meaningful way in your games. So, that said, till next time, gotta roll.